I, 29F, thought my husband, Mark, 31M, was the love of my life. We had been married for 3 years, and while things weren't perfect, I believed we were happy. That belief shattered the night he said he was working late, and I saw a photo of him at dinner with his ex. But what truly destroyed me was his sister's comment on that photo. The one that got away. Mark had been distant lately. He came home exhausted every night, barely speaking to me before collapsing into bed. I told myself it was just work stress. His job at the accounting firm was demanding, especially during tax season. I tried to be the supportive wife, making his favorite meals, keeping the house quiet when he needed rest, handling all the household tasks so he wouldn't have to worry about them. That evening started like many others. I was preparing dinner when my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Have to pull an all-nighter at the office. Critical deadline. Don't wait up. Love you. I texted back wishing him luck, feeling that familiar mix of sympathy for his workload and loneliness from another evening alone. I ate dinner by myself, cleaned up, and settled onto the couch with my phone. That's when everything changed. A mutual acquaintance had posted photos from a birthday dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. I was scrolling through them absent-mindedly when I saw it. In the background of one photo, unmistakably, were Mark and Sarah, his ex-girlfriend, sitting at a table for two. They weren't just having dinner. They were leaning close, her hand on his arm, both of them smiling in a way that made my stomach drop. My hands shook as I stared at the photo. But then I saw the comment that made everything worse. Mark's sister Emily had written, "The one that got away. So good to see them together," with a winking emoji. Not only was my husband lying to me about working, not only was he with his ex, but his own sister knew about it and was celebrating it. I took screenshots of everything. The photo, Emily's comment, the timestamp showing it was posted just minutes ago. Then I sat in the dark living room waiting. Mark came home at 4 a.m, playing his part perfectly. He stumbled through the door, rubbing his eyes, complaining about his boss and the unreasonable deadlines. I watched him lie to my face, describing details of a night at the office that never happened. I said nothing. I needed more information before I made my move. The next morning, after Mark left for work, I began my investigation. I logged into our joint bank account, something I rarely did since Mark handled most of our finances. What I found made my blood run cold. For the past 4 months, there had been regular cash withdrawals I never knew about. Small amounts, but they added up to thousands of dollars. Money that Mark had never mentioned or explained. I accessed our family phone plan records online. The call logs told a story of betrayal deeper than I imagined. Dozens of calls between Mark and Sarah over the past months. Hundreds of text messages. But there were just as many communications between Mark and Emily. His sister wasn't just aware of the affair. She was actively involved in helping him hide it. Emily had always made comments that stung, though I tried to brush them off. "Sarah was so adventurous," she would say. Mark and Sarah traveled to the most amazing places together. Or Sarah understood Mark's ambitions in a way most people don't. Now I understood these weren't innocent reminiscences. They were calculated attempts to undermine my marriage, to make me feel inferior to the woman her brother had dated before me. I called Emily that afternoon, keeping my voice light and normal. "Hey, Emily," I said. "Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." Her response was overly cheerful, with an edge of something I now recognized as smugness. "Oh, I'm wonderful. It's just so great to see Mark truly happy again lately. He seems like his old self, you know." "What do you mean?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. "Oh, nothing specific," she said. "Just that spark in his eyes is back. Haven't seen it in years." I wanted to scream at her, but I kept my composure. I had bigger plans than a phone confrontation. After hanging up, I continued digging. I hired a private investigator with my own savings, telling him I suspected my husband of financial infidelity. What he found 3 days later was the final piece of the puzzle. Mark had co-signed a lease on an apartment 2 months ago. The other name on the lease was Sarah's. The address was across town in a trendy neighborhood we had once talked about moving to. The cash withdrawals weren't just funding dates and gifts. My husband had been using our money to build a new life with his ex-girlfriend. Every late night at the office was likely spent at their new place, picking out furniture, planning their future together. I sat in my lawyer's office the next day, spreading out all my evidence on her desk. She reviewed everything with professional calm while I explained what I had discovered. Following her advice, I transferred 75% of our joint savings into a private account in my name. She assured me this was legal, as it represented my contributions to our savings, plus half of what we had accumulated together during our marriage. Mark's secret withdrawals had already taken his fair share, and then some. I gathered every piece of evidence into a folder. The screenshot of the photo and Emily's comment, the phone records with highlighted calls and texts, the bank statements showing the pattern of withdrawals, and finally, a copy of the apartment lease with Mark and Sarah's signatures. I had everything I needed. The perfect opportunity for my revenge came that weekend. Mark's mother had invited the whole family for Sunday dinner, a monthly tradition. Mark seemed nervous that morning, but I acted completely normal, even affectionate. Yeah, I helped him pick out his shirt. I smiled and kissed him goodbye when he left early to help his father with yard work. I would arrive later, just in time for dinner. When I walked into my in-laws' house that evening, the scene was perfectly domestic. Mark's parents were bustling around the kitchen. Emily was there with her husband. Mark's brother had come with his family. Everyone was laughing, talking. The picture of a happy family gathering. Mark relaxed when he saw me, probably relieved I seemed so normal. We sat down to dinner. I waited until everyone had been served, until the conversation had reached a comfortable rhythm. Then, during a brief lull, I stood up with my phone in my hand. I have something I'd like to share with all of you, I said, my voice steady and clear. Mark's mother smiled, probably expecting good news. Maybe she thought we were going to announce a pregnancy. I connected my phone to their smart TV, the large screen in the living room visible from the dining table. The first image that appeared was the restaurant photo, zoomed in on Mark and Sarah at their intimate table for two. The room went completely silent. Forks stopped moving. Every eye turned from the screen to Mark, whose face had gone white, but I wasn't done. The next image was a close-up of Emily's comment, the one that got away so good to see them together. Mark's mother gasped. His father's face turned red. Emily looked like she might faint. Her husband dropped his fork, the clatter echoing in the silent room. Your son has been lying to me for months, I said, advancing to the next slide, the phone records. These are the calls and texts between Mark and Sarah, and these, I moved to the next image, are the calls between Mark and Emily, who has been helping him hide his affair. Clara, this isn't the place, Mark said, standing up, his chair scraping against the floor. There is no place for us anymore. I said, you chose this. I clicked to the next image, the bank statements. These are the cash withdrawals Mark has been making from our joint account. Thousands of dollars I never knew about. Another click. And this is where that money went. Yawn. An apartment lease signed by Mark and Sarah 2 months ago. He hasn't just been cheating. He's been building a new life with your money and mine. Mark's mother stood up, her face a mask of fury. But it wasn't directed at me. She was staring at her son with a combination of disgust and disappointment I had never seen before. His father hadn't moved, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the edge of the table. I turned to Emily. I hope you're happy. You finally get the sister-in-law you always wanted. I hope she enjoys living in an apartment furnished with my money. Emily burst into tears. Her husband was staring at her in shock, clearly unaware of her involvement. You knew about this? He asked her, his voice breaking. I've already filed for divorce, I announced to the room. I've also secured our assets to protect myself from further financial fraud. My lawyer will be in touch. Mark tried to grab my arm as I picked up my purse. Clara, please, let's talk about this. I pulled away from him. We're done talking. You can explain everything to your parents. I'm sure they'll be very interested to hear why their son is a liar and a thief." I walked out of that house with my head held high, leaving behind the sound of shouting. Mark's mother's voice rose above the rest, and I heard her say, Sarah's name, like a curse. The family was imploding, and I didn't need to stay to watch. The divorce moved quickly. My lawyer was excellent, and the evidence was overwhelming. Mark tried to contest the asset division at first, but when threatened with charges of financial fraud, he backed down. I got the house and a favorable settlement. The judge was particularly unsympathetic when he learned about the secret apartment and the money taken from our joint account. He ordered Mark to pay all my legal fees on top of the settlement. Mark ended up financially crippled. He had to pay me alimony while also being stuck on the lease for Sarah's apartment. I heard from mutual friends that his relationship with Sarah fell apart within 2 months. Apparently, the thrill of sneaking around was gone once everything was in the open, and she realized he was broke. She moved out, but he was still responsible for the rent on a place he couldn't afford. The apartment became a monument to his stupidity, empty and draining his bank account every month. His relationship with his parents never recovered. His mother refused to speak to him for months, and when she finally did, things were ice cold between them. She told him he had brought shame to the family name. Emily became a pariah in the family. Her husband almost left her when he learned about her role in the deception. Mark's parents blamed her almost as much as they blamed him, furious that she had helped destroy my marriage while smiling to my face at every family gathering. Family dinners became a thing of the past. The family that had gathered so happily that Sunday never came together the same way again. I sold the house 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I used the money to start fresh in a new city with a new job and new possibilities. I heard Mark had to move back in with his parents, a 31-year-old man sleeping in his childhood bedroom, his ex-girlfriend gone, his wife gone, his dignity gone. He had to take a second job just to keep up with his financial obligations. Sometimes I think about Emily's comment on that photo. The one that got away. She was right about one thing. Someone did get away, but it wasn't Sarah. It was me. I got away from a lying, cheating husband. I got away from a manipulative sister-in-law. I got away from a toxic situation with my dignity, my assets, and my future intact. Mark thought he was so clever, building his new life in secret while I played the supportive wife at home. But I was the one who ended up free. He's trapped in the wreckage of his own choices, paying for an empty apartment, living with disappointed parents, abandoned by the woman he threw away his marriage for. His clever plan had turned into his prison. I was the one who got away, and I did it with my head high and my future secure.